word aliens out of your mind, because we don't know what the heck these things are. It's just something. So you decide what this is. So now the terms we're going to hear tonight: USO, unidentified submerged object. That's in the ocean or a lake or a river, whatever. UAP, unidentified. It used to be aerial phenomenon, like UFO, unidentified flying object. They just went so blanket, they call it anomalous now, because they don't know, like, if it's a ghost or it's a demon or it's an interdimensional galactic being. They just call it anomalous. So UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomenon, whatever may they be. And this was the template for a book report, so that's why I said it. Okay, so my intent is to inform and prepare you for whatever may come, not to persuade you. You'll make your own decisions about whatever this is. I'm just going to present data and evidence, and you decide what you want to believe. This is kind of the primer that I saw this the other day. Walter Kern, look him up if you want to. He's an author and a journalist that I tend to follow because he's really good at diving through the bullshit of the news cycle and getting right to the kernel of what's really going on and why are they telling us this and what's really happening behind the scenes. But he wrote this just the other day, October 16th. Can I blow the whole UFO thing wide open for you? You won't believe me anyway. It's only a matter of time until you hear things that will rock your world, if your world is rockable. You'll have a hard time verifying them, but that's true of everything you hear. It's true of unemployment statistics. They will be very specific things, however, and so far out, so beyond your expectations, they will ring your bell. And you'll hear them from people you weren't ready to hear such things from. The shells are in the cannon. It's all about who gets to shoot it and who wins and who loses when it goes off. There's money involved. Lots. Hear me now, believe me later, as they say. So this is a horrible slide, so I'll just read these. But these are notable mentions, probably like within the last 7, 8 years. See if you recognize some of these characters from the news. What is true, and I'm actually being serious here, is that there's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are. We can't explain how they moved, their trajectory. They did not have an easily explainable pattern. That was Barack Obama. I won't talk to you about what I know about it, but it's very interesting. Roswell is a very interesting place with a lot of people that would like to know what's going on. Donald Trump. We were talking about objects that have been seen by Navy and Air Force pilots or have been picked up by satellite imagery, but that frankly engage in actions that are difficult to explain. Movements that are hard to replicate, that we don't have the technology for. That was John Ratcliffe, the former director of national intelligence. We've had some declassification of some very strange videos that look like they are, unidentified flying objects. That's the current director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, recently. Then this is, because it's kind of paraphrased, this is from John Brennan, former head of the CIA. And regarding the unexplained nature of UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomenon, he acknowledged the possibility that the phenomenon are, this was an interview he gave, the result of something that we don't yet understand. He added that the activity could involve some type of activity that some might say constitutes a different form of life. And here's another one. We'll go through these hopefully quicker. We've had repeated instances of something operating in the airspace over restricted nuclear facilities, and it's not ours. And that the government cannot allow the stigma of UFOs to keep us from seriously investigating this. That's the current Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. The U.S. is in possession of a craft of unknown origin and had successfully gained access to its interior. The craft has a streamlined configuration suitable for aerodynamic flight, but no intakes, exhaust, wings, or control surfaces. In fact, it appeared not to have an engine, fuel tanks, or fuel. What was the purpose of this craft? That's Dr. James Likatsky, who worked for the Department of National Intelligence, and he was one of the premier rocket scientists all through the Cold War. Recently wrote a book, and that was in there. He got it approved through the DOPSR process, which they're allowed to talk about these things. And the final one, because this guy will be in the slides later, UAP have been observed in the ocean and are known to exhibit transmedium travel through the air-sea interface. These are often referred to as unidentified submerged objects. There are non-human intelligences visiting in all domains, including the sea, sky, and land. Now that we know UAP are interacting with humanity, and these include unidentified submerged objects in the ocean, we should not keep our heads stuck in the sand, but boldly face this new reality and learn from it. And that's the retired Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet. So, pretty big people. These are not just anybody. This all kind of cracked off, if you were paying attention, back in 2017. The New York Times, it's a pretty prestigious newspaper. They wrote this article, Glowing Auras and Black Money, the Pentagon's Mysterious UFO Program. A guy named Lou Elizondo kind of quit his job to go out on the talk circuit and start telling people what he experienced and knew from his work in the DoD, Pentagon, and all these other programs. And this really is kind of the touchstone for many people. They finally felt comfortable to talk about it in public in mixed company because the New York Times had done it. So now it's fair game. And it really opened up the floodgates. So how is this related to the Channel Islands, you might ask? So this is like the narrowest slice through this whole topic that you guys are going to get. But one of the probably the most data-laden, best observers, all that stuff in this one case was a 2004 Nimitz carrier group that was doing workups off the coast out here. And it's called, probably more well-known as the Tic Tac incident. So there's a lot of people involved, the whole carrier group worked, but these are sort of the three that I'm going to talk about. Kevin Day, he was the radar operator. And he, as I understood when he was explaining, he's like, you know, like the movie Top Gun, they go and they train all the pilots. They have one of those for radar operators too. And I was one of those guys that went through there. So he knows his stuff. David Fravor, Commander David Fravor, he was the commander of the Black Aces. They have all these cool like names, you know, and then Navy. So he was the head of the whole flight squad. And then he was training Alex Dietrich during this event. And instead of me explaining it, I found a small, like, little clip that explains it way better. But this is basically the flight path that Kevin Day explained. These things came down over Point Conception from more or less outer space. 80,000 feet is when their radar picked them up. And they dropped immediately to the sea surface, like in less than a second. And there's a whole paper, I have it in here, but we're not going to talk about it much. But there's a really highfalutin NASA guy went and did all the calculation. He's like, this is just crazy. You would like need an onboard like sun amount of power to do these maneuvers, and it would just liquefy any biological or just destroy the craft. But it was given the name Tic Tac because it looked like the little candy, a Tic Tac. But in the past they were given other names. But landmarks, Point Conception, our Channel Islands, San Diego, Ensenada. This is where they were doing all the work. And then on the radar, they disappeared right here north of Guadalupe Island. Like every single one of them, hundreds of these things over weeks. So there's just a little synopsis of that event.
2004, the USS Nimitz Carrier Strike Group was conducting routine training exercises off the coast of San Diego when the radar spotted an unidentified object flying chaotically. FA-18 fighter pilots were sent to intercept the object. But when they arrived, they saw something incredible. It was an object shaped like a giant Tic Tac, hovering and darting around with movements that defied the laws of physics. The Tic Tac UFO had no visible wings, no exhaust, and moved at hypersonic speeds. It dropped from 80,000 feet to just above sea sea level in less than 1 second, something no human-made aircraft can do. And it wasn't just the pilot's accounts. Infrared footage captured by the fighter jets confirmed it. This object was real. And to this day, the Tic Tac UFO remains unexplained.
And there's been papers written about it. Lots and lots of detail in this case, so that's just like a little scraping off the top. David Fravor testified in front of Congress. So all this is under oath. He talked to the leaders of our country about what he saw, along with some other guys, David Grush and Ryan Graves. So there was equally weird stuff going on the East Coast. That's what Ryan Graves was talking about. And Grush was talking about all the stuff happening within government. He dredged up so much information. If you're interested, there's some really good interviews that he gave. What's this one? Nothing?
There's a couple of those.
Oh, I read that.
It's right before.
Okay, so you might be thinking like, oh, this is like super high-tech military stuff that's going on out there. This was taken in 1966, I think it says. This is Catalina Island.
1966.
Tic Tac. The guy was on vacation, and he happened to be like out there with a video not a video, this is like film camera back then. And he filmed this object flying behind the island. And he was so astonished that he got that bulky ass thing out and filmed this because he saw it and like took the time to, you know, reel off. Who knows how much that cost back then? And you see it when it's slowed down. You're like, that's not an airplane. It looks like a blimp, maybe. It almost looks like it's like elongating, and who knows if that's like the compression or something. So it's not new. This has been going on for a long time. There's people trying to claim now that Lockheed Martin built the Tic Tac. You know, like, so they had it in the 60s, and back then they also had other reports. They called them butane tanks, like white lozenges. These things go way back. And there's like a stigma, like there's pushback. This isn't just happening easily. Even some of like our science communicators who are supposed to be open to new ideas and exploring the possibilities and doing the rigor of science, yet people like Neil deGrasse Tyson chiming in. How to turn most UFOs into IFOs, identified flying objects. Take one course in stargazing, another in atmospheric phenomenon, and a third in cognitive bias. So he's like, haha. And she, Alex Dietrich, who was there, who saw the thing, who's a trained fighter pilot, among many other things in her life now, writes back, oh, hi, Neil. My transcript includes courses in astronomy and meteorology, and I've been teaching cognitive bias for the last 7 years. Thank you very much. Still a UFO that we saw in November 14th, 2004. So just a slap back. Like, come on, man. And we have other people who start to come out of the shadows who are willing to step up and take the heat for other people. There's a lot of people in the military who have seen really weird stuff. And this guy, Tim Gallaudet, he's a retired rear admiral in the U.S. Navy. Finally, he came out because he's like, look, I've seen some of these videos when I was on the inside. I've talked to people. There's definitely something going on. So he had 32 years of service. When he retired, he was the oceanographer of the Navy. That's a pretty high-ranking job. He's a rear admiral. And he was working in NOAA as a civilian, and he eventually was the NOAA administrator in 2017 and 2019. So he knows his stuff, he knows the ocean, he knows what's going on out there, he knows there's weird things that we don't understand, but then he knows there's some things that are even beyond that. He also testified in front of Congress, among Lou Elizondo, Michael Schellenberger, journalist, and Mike Gold worked for NASA. So they're all talking about this. They're coming out. They're talking about it. Did I not play that one?
Which one is that?
It's where it's a short clip of him.
This
Oh,
one?
no, that one right there.
No.
Government's trying to wipe your slide deck.
You go back into it.
Oh.
It's the boat internet.
No,
2019, off the coast of San Diego, the crew of the USS Omaha detected something.
How crucial is this?
It's not
video?
gonna load.
I don't think so. How
So
crucial
basically,
is
it's 2019, kind of the same area. These ships see this. You may, if you pay attention to this, the news. This was in there recently. They were filming. They had two different things going on. They had pyramidal triangles, like they look like triangles through the night vision, the green, but they were pyramids in shape. And so there's one group like looking at these things in the sky, and there was, I think, like 100 of them or something, and they were all over all the different boats in the carrier group. And then there was other ones they got on the FLIR, the forward-looking infrared, that looked like the Tic Tac, that were traveling along, and you can hear them in one of the original videos. They're like, we've got like 30 knots, winds, sustained, 40 gusts, and this thing's like just motoring along, no problem. And then it just goes down into the water, and they're like, splash, splash. They sent a submarine to look for it. It was gone. And they have all this documented, and then the people on the ships are like, what the hell is going on? And so they want answers, so they're like talking to the media, because no one in government's really doing much. So Tim Gallaudet, he testified, and he talks about like how we don't really know what's going on, you know, the classic, we know more about the surface of the moon than we do the bottom of the ocean, because it's around 27% of the ocean's been mapped. And this is a map from the NOAA website. You can see the government is shut down, so this may not be up to date. But you know, you see Hawaii, like all the trade routes are all like in there, the coastlines are well mapped, but there's a lot, we don't know what the heck's going on out there. So you zoom in on the Southern California Bight, you can see the islands here. It's just like a dense mass of scans they've done. So then you zoom in even closer. This is Anacapa, the Wainimi Canyon, Magoo Canyon. And there's this little weird thing over here. Everything's kind of like linear or like transects back and forth. And then there's this spot. And it's just like, well, that's weird. And it's like a flower. Like they're looking at this thing a lot. And I think I know why they did that. Because this has been an anomaly off the Southern California coast, which has sparked all kinds of speculation. In fact, entire books have been written about this particular location. It's called the Sycamore Knoll. And this is without all the lines on it. So it's Point Dume, Port Wainimi up here. So it's kind of just right where we, you know, we're not far from there. It's this raised, flat-topped kind of mesa offshore, higher than the rest of the bathymetry out there, and it drops down to like 2,000 feet out here, I think, if I remember that correctly. And you used to get on Google Earth and you could like tilt the angle down and it looked like a cave that went underneath it, coming from the ocean side with pillars. So it looked funky, like it definitely looked weird. So people were just, you know, Google Earth searching for weird things. This is one of them. The reason I mention it is because there is a paper written about it. I think that's where all those lines came from, because they were looking at this for geological purposes. But one of the clips might have been cut off. Tim Gallaudet gave a speech up at Stanford for the Soul Foundation, which is a new thing they started. 2 days later, on Google, all of this was de-res. So this is what it used to look like. If you went on Google Earth with Google Maps, you could see it, see all this highly detailed drainage. And then, you know, it even makes it onto the news. So it's not just me. There's other people noticing this stuff. So that's before, and this is after. They de-res like a huge area of the coast. So I'm like, I don't know why. Maybe it's just a computer thing, but it's been like this for like over like a year or two now. So you're like, what? How long does it take for them to fix that? It doesn't make sense. Especially when you go back and you look at how many times they passed over this spot in a ship. Like, they definitely have the data to put that back on there, but they choose not to, or it's not a priority. Who knows? So that's the book I just showed you. And you can see up here, that's what it looked like when you used to tilt down. They have these like columns, and then there's this thing that people thought was a flying saucer. I'm not saying that's what it is, but it gets people's imaginations going. And then this is the paper, all written about the Sycamore Knoll. And then you know, I'm not going to read all that, but...
We'll link it later.
No, it's fine. I don't want to read that.
Well, we're going to link it later.
And then this one's kind of long and it's a little boring, so we could maybe double speed it. But this is, it's still like this stuff's still going on.
Can you give a
No, let's double
Just
speed
start
it.
playing it and then like
Yeah, double speed it.
Yeah, I want to watch it.
so a little wheel there.
It's only 4 minutes long.
The coolest thing about this was they chartered the dive boat piece
this?
and they
Yeah.
went offshore and they were looking at underwater sites because of things like the Sycamore Knoll. They're like, there's weird stuff out there. We want to check it out.
I might have gone too fast.
No, it's all right.
Take a look right
So
there.
that's the weird thing they see. It doesn't matter.
What's
what
the
they're
depth there, Joel? What's the depth?
The top of it, I think, is only like a few hundred feet deep, but the back drops off to like 3,000 or 2,000. Okay, so you had to be like me and watch like a whole bunch of background on this.
Pause it.
Pause.
Pause it.
But go back a little bit, because just to the last like couple minutes.
It's only 4
They're
minutes.
anchored off South Point on Santa Rosa Island, and this is at night. They were filming a TV show, and they kept seeing this light like showing up, and they're like, "What the hell is that?" So they're probably looking south towards like San Nick off to the left, nothing out here to the right, and they don't know what they're looking at. So they put up a camera overnight on the boat just to film all night, and they caught this light coming back closer to the boat. And then it slowly drops down into the water, and it doesn't go out. It goes underwater, and it almost looks like it starts moving a little bit. So they're like, "What the hell was that?" And they got it on film, and I still don't know what it is. Once it goes in the water, it looks like a dive light. When it's in the sky, it looks like a flare. Who knows? But anyways, that is. Can I still jam through these, or will it stop me?
No. Here, I'll set you up. We're gonna start here.
And then this is a whole book, 3 books, 3 volumes. This is the first volume that just came out. Richard Dolan's like a historian for UFO stuff. It's only about underwater unidentified objects. And this is volume 1. From the beginning to 1969, he has cases that go back to like 500 AD when like they're writing about stuff coming out of rivers on fire, and you're like, well, whatever, I don't know. Christopher Columbus has in his logs mysterious lights, and then he's like, well, I don't know, maybe he was getting close to the mainland at that point and he was seeing like the native fires on the beach, so I'm gonna like put that one over here, but not sure. And then there's one in the 1700s. He's like, this one's unambiguous. These guys are sailing out in the middle of the Atlantic, and they're like far from land, and they're seeing lights coming out of the water, lighting up the deck as bright as daylight. They could have read by it, they said. And then they like go over and then go back, and they're gone. And so these are like the naturalists on the boat, like Darwin, you know, like the guys recording everything in detail. And they write this one night, and then the next day they're writing like, oh, weather was this, weather was that, wave size this, we had a weird bird land on the mat. Like, they're just recording all the stuff. You're like, what in the world was that? So this stuff has been happening for a long time. Volume 1. All right, now we're gonna move to play this one up here with the guy.
This one?
So this is a little closer to home again. Another guy who testified in front of Congress. This is at Vandenberg, now Space Force Base, but this was in 2003 before it was Space Force. If it doesn't play,
Yeah.
basically he was like the military police, and I always thought like, oh, military police, like they're like mall cops. No, they're like legit police for the bases. And there was a whole bunch of reports. I think it was the NRO was doing, they said, the most important launches in 25 years. They're putting up like spy satellites, basically. So everything's locked down on the base. And then, lo and behold, out of nowhere off the ocean, this huge red square. I don't know if it was a square or a cube. They didn't really explain it, but it like came over the base, checked them out, and then went over the mountains, came out, disappeared. Another light comes up over multiple days. They had all kinds of intrusions over the base. And then one of them, a triangle came and nearly landed or did land on the base on the flight line. And they're freaking out. And he testified to Congress. He has all like the documentation. He's given it to the FBI and the government bureaus that are investigating it. So this stuff's happening right here. We see the rocket launches. That's right where this stuff's going on. And people they often say like, oh, it's just the military testing stuff against ourselves to see how we react. And he's like, hell no. Like, these are like multi-billion-dollar satellites we're launching. They would never risk running one of our experimental like new aircraft over the thing to land next to these rockets that are going off like the next day. Like, just absolutely would not happen. Hopefully this one plays. This is a good run off of all the events. It's not.
I can find it.
Yeah, why isn't it
So
playing?
that one,
Oh, that's
They
just
found you. The IP address has just been leaked.
no, it worked earlier.
We're getting doxxed.
So it's just, there's another guy, last name Wiggins. He just testified a couple months ago. They had a whole, in 2023, they had a whole event happen off of the coast again, and it looks exactly like the Tic Tac craft. They had them on another, they called it the Sapphire system, where it's like this radar FLIR thing that tracked them simultaneously. He visually saw it, and these things were like white lights that were flying, and they just zipped off super fast. And it's all within this area, but they also have tracked these things underwater. The submariners have tracked them on sonar going like 70 knots. And then there's a clip where he talks about on one, they haven't said where it is yet, but they track underwater these things traveling faster than the speed of sound, which is like technically impossible as far as we know. So these things are going so fast underwater where cavitation would just like explode the hole. Yet they're picking up sonar returns that these things are moving faster than the speed of sound underwater. And so this isn't like a bunch of lightweights talking about this. These are serious people. And then this is the group of people here at work that just talking to each other. We're like, man, have you ever seen anything weird? And it was just a list off the top of my head that. So Andrea's husband, Dave Mills, he worked at the Navy site on Santa Cruz Island. He has like a bunch of stories of seeing weird stuff back behind the islands. Garen, you told me your story, I think Santa Barbara Mountains or something.
Yeah.
You're looking out and you saw like a green light come go into the water.
Yep.
All right, so you can elaborate later if you want to. You remember Stu, who used to work here, English Stu? He told me he was camping, I think he said the Central Coast, but I think he said like Refugio, El Cap, Gaviota, something like that. And he was standing there, broad daylight, and they saw like almost like a fog bank cloud just go by with something in it that was like full of light. And everyone was staring at it like, what the hell is that? Like everyone just stopped what they were doing, watched it go by, and then was like, huh?
What kind of light?
I don't remember how he described it, but like there was something inside this cloud, and he just was,
Small cloud, large cloud?
I think it was pretty big, and he was just like dumbfounded, and he wasn't the only one who saw it, and that's really close to Vandenberg. I think his name was Darren, the guy who used to work on the Caligera. You remember that guy? Was it Darren? He's dead now, but he was a young guy. Yeah, he was young. But he reported one day he was out fishing squid, and they came back, and he was like, oh, there's like lights flying everywhere out there. Joseph, you told me your story. I don't want to out you, but he's got an interesting story if he wants to share it later. I think Jose from the fuel dock told me a story. Can't remember the exact details, but he was driving, I think, and saw something. And then Paige, I believe it was you, Luke, and Jason had like something. I don't know what that was. I wasn't there. But you guys saw something like multiple times on your crossings. And I remember everyone going, Jason was like, he didn't want to admit it. He was like, nope, just burp, burp. And Jean Scholes, Dave Corey's wife, she used to work here as one of the naturalists and deckhands. And she was on a hike at Prisoners, on the hike on the Pelican Trail. And she described they sat down like at 11 or whatever, 15 to have lunch, and the guy was eating a sandwich, and she's like, what the heck is that? And there was like a UFO up in the sky, and the guy was a super weirdo on the trail, and he's like, well, that often happens when I ingest food. And you're like, what the heck? So you're like, but the weird people see the weird stuff. And then I don't even know what bucket to put this in, but long ago, when I first started here, you know, you learn all this stuff like, oh, I didn't know that's here. I didn't know that's here. I remember, I think Dave Corey was the captain, and I walked out of the wheelhouse, and we were going from Scorpion to Prisoners, and something came out of the water in front of the boat, like a flying fish. But it wasn't a flying fish. I didn't know what this thing was. I just remember it caught my attention, and it came out from like ahead of the boat, just straight out of the water, into flight, and was like gliding faster than we were going, and it just kept getting away from us, and it was liquid, like it was reflecting light, like something covered in liquid, like they had just emerged, or like highly polished metal, like chrome. And I remember just watching it going, what? And it was round, it was like this big, and it just took off. Yeah, but it just kept going until I couldn't see it, and then it got lost in like some sun glare, and I couldn't tell the glare from the object, and then it was gone. And to this day, I don't know what it was, but it's nothing I've seen ever since. And so I'm like, I don't know where to put that, but that's my personal experience.
Doug has a cool story too.
Yeah, Doug has a story, I think, from Hawaii.
Yeah.
And then he had other ones from around here when he was hiking. So lots of crew have had their own personal experiences. And then you layer on all these, you know, high-level, credible witnesses, military people, government officials. And you're like, there's definitely something going on. What it is anyone's guess. Some people probably know more than others.
Remember, okay, when I worked here, we were talking about this, and my brother is military, and I asked him, have you ever seen anything? And he's like, I can't tell you. It was top secret at the time. So yes, he was a military pilot, and they had seen stuff, and he couldn't tell me what they saw.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask him again, because now, since it's out.
He might be more open, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is like
So
the
there is
thinnest slice through the marine environment, which is the least known. But there's estimates from the people in the know that there's more going on underwater than there is up in the atmosphere. It's more of the planet, there's more going on, it's the more likely place to hide. You're not affected by all the cosmic radiation, all the temperature fluctuations. There's one of the papers here, this estimating flight characteristics of anomalous unidentified aerial vehicles. Ken Knuth, he's like a legitimate scientist. He postulated that if you came to another planet, you would probably go into the body of water, because to be liquid water, there's only a certain like fine level of criteria that needs to be met. Like, it's going to be liquid, it's got to be this temperature range. You can't have like all these extraneous atmospheric conditions in there. It's going to be water. And so that would be like a commonality that you could look for on planets if you were going to come here and like hang out. You would want a body of water, because everything else on the surface could be chaotic. You don't know what's going on.
Is it question time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, nope, give me that. Yay!